Kansas is a great state. Kansas has been represented, quote unquote, by Pat Roberts for many years. Problem is, Pat Roberts has more in common with Alexandria, Virginia than he does Kansas, because that's where his home really is. It's where his family really lives. And he's an inside the Beltway establishment Republican. And there's a doctor out there, Milton Wolfe, who said, I've had enough of it. I'm a citizen. I want to fight Obamacare. I'm a conservative. I'm concerned about the future of this country, and I'm going to take on the establishment. Dr. Wolfe, how are you, sir?
Greetings from bright red Kansas. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing great. You know, I used to read your columns and your commentary. I mean, really solid stuff, and you decided to take on Pat Roberts. Tell everybody why.
Well, first let me just tell you thank you. What an honor it is for me to be able to visit with you tonight. I've listened to you for years. I've read your books, some of them multiple times. And I think of your books, I'm sure your listeners will agree with me. Your books like Liberty and Tyranny and Meritopia, and they go on the bookshelf at my house next to Milton Friedman's Free to Choose and Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics and Hayek's Road to Serfdom and Bosch's The Law. These are books that have influenced me greatly, and I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you, Doctor. I really appreciate that.
When you endorsed me, and you and I know this, your listeners may not, but I didn't know that was coming. And I still almost get chills about it just thinking about it. It was such I'll never forget that. I'm out here to fight for our country and fight for our republic. I know you and I know what you stand for. And I want you to know, I will not let you down. I will not cower in this fight. Our country is in trouble, and that's why I'm running. Now, look, I'm a constitutional conservative, but I am not a politician. I'm a doctor. I'm a practicing physician. And I know we need to have more citizen legislators who will stand up for our Constitution and for the American idea itself of individual liberty and limited government and free market values. And frankly, we need fewer career politicians. I've been a Republican all my life, and I've been loyal to our party. But I believe the problem is our party has not been loyal to its own principles. And that's why I'm running. I'm challenging Senator Pat Roberts, who's one of the Rhino Republicans. He's been in Washington for 47 years. And I don't think anybody should be in Washington for 47 years. I don't even think Moses should be in Washington for 47 years.
And what's interesting, Dr. Wolfe, is that he has, unfortunately, tried to copy Orrin Hatch's approach, which is to lurch right, to get on the floor, even speak as a conservative. You confuse him with Ted Cruz sometimes. He's so solid, and yet that's not his history, is it?
It's not. I mean, that's him in an election year. He gets decent scores from the different groups in an election year, but before I came along in 2012, Club for Growth had him at a 55, and Freedom Works had him at a 54. That's well to the left of John McCain and well to the left of Lindsey Graham. Now, we need solid conservatives, and solid conservatives don't need election year conversions. I think we need more senators like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and Rand Paul, and that is why I'm running.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you coming under an onslaught of attacks from the same funding sources and corporatists and so forth that are going around the country trying to wipe out conservative candidates?
It is absolutely an amazing thing. If Pat Roberts could run on his record, I think he would. He doesn't do that. If he could find a single issue he thinks I'm wrong on, and by the way, I've been around longer than just this campaign. That, like you alluded to, I've been writing a conservative column for years at the Washington Times, doing Fox News and traveling the state and traveling the country. There's no shortage of my beliefs that are discoverable, but he hasn't found a single issue he says that I'm wrong on. Instead, all he does is attack me personally. Well, that's fine. I have got thick skin, and I'm willing to fight. I'll tell you, I do have a confession to make. There are a lot of accusations in this campaign, and one accusation they say about me is true. I'll confess it tonight. Barack Obama and I are actually cousins. Now, I got to remind everybody, though, you cannot choose your family. Mm-hmm. What you can do is you can choose to rise up and stop your family from destroying America, and that's what I think Barack Obama is doing. I don't think it's nothing personal, but I believe Barack Obama is the worst president in our lifetimes and maybe the worst president in our history, and we need to put a stop to him and all of those statist Democrats.
And Pat Roberts has pretty much, through his career, voted to get along, voted for debt ceiling increases, voting for spending increases. I am not familiar with any significant stance the man has taken. I'm sure he's a very decent person, but I'm not aware of any significant stance he's taken that's courageous while he's been in Congress.
That's the problem. When Barack Obama needed Pat Roberts to vote for his $600 billion fiscal cliff tax hike, then Pat Roberts did. And when Barack Obama needed Pat Roberts to vote for a debt ceiling, he did. In fact, Pat Roberts has voted to raise our debt ceiling 11 times. That's more than Mitch McConnell. And Pat Roberts voted, I'll tell you, this is the one that probably gets me the most because I see the effect of this on my patients and in the hospital. But Pat Roberts voted to put Kathleen Sebelius in charge of Obamacare. You know, you cannot claim you are against Obamacare when you are crowning the queen of Obamacare, and that is Pat Roberts.
And, of course, she was the governor of Kansas, so he should have known better.
Well, if he actually lived in Kansas, he would have known better. But he hasn't lived in Kansas for 47 years. In fact, you know, on Monday, the state is convening a special board to review whether or not he's actually even eligible to be on the ballot. There are serious questions of his Kansas residency. He declared with his personal financial disclosure that his primary residence is in Alexandria, Virginia, in the home he lives in today that he purchased in 1975. He had not lived in Kansas for 18 years before he ran for the Congress in 1980. And when he did, believe it or not, he actually listed as his official address a vacant lot in Dodge City, a town in which he had never lived. And he claims it today as his hometown. This is the kind of arrogance we have in Washington. And I'll tell you something. If we as Republicans want Barack Obama to abide by the Constitution, then we darn well better make sure that we as Republicans abide by the Constitution. And Article 1, Section 3 is unambiguous. You must be an inhabitant of the state that you're going to represent if you're going to be a United States Senator.
Isn't it amazing, Dr. Milton Wolfe? I'm talking to Dr. Wolfe, who is the conservative challenger to a longtime establishment Republican Pat Roberts in the Republican primary for the Senate in Kansas. You can go to marklevinshow.com on my Facebook, Mark Levin Show Facebook, Mark Levin Show Twitter, and you can see his website there. First of all, when is your primary?
It's August 5th, and we have got to get you out here, Mark. I think you're going to love being in Kansas. You should see the excitement. This race really has gotten so much bigger than Pat Roberts. You know, last week we had the Tea Party Express do a couple stops in Kansas. We had hundreds of people come out at each place. We've been continuing our own tour, and there really is an excitement. And I'll tell you, here's something that's interesting. We actually outraised Senator Roberts in the first quarter of this year among individual contributors. This is a grassroots campaign by its very definition. And I would urge your listeners, in fact, to hop on our website, miltonwolfe.com. You know, every contribution matters. If you can contribute $5,000, do it. Be a part of history. If you can contribute $5, you will move the needle. You'll put your name in the history books.
But they're pouring in money, I'm guessing, American Crossroads, that's Rove, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, all these other groups, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, they're all pretty much all lined against you, aren't they?
You know, if those Republicans would fight against Barack Obama and the Democrats as hard as they fight against conservatives like me, I would not feel compelled to run. But our country is in trouble because these career Republican politicians have let us down. You know, when America entrusted itself to Republicans, look at the 2000s. They gave Republicans the White House, the House, the Senate, even the Supreme Court, and look what we got in return. The largest expansion of government in our nation's history until Barack Obama came along. The largest spending, the largest debt. They gave us no bureaucrat left behind for our schools, the auto bailouts, the bank bailouts. They even banned a light bulb. These were Republicans who today call themselves conservatives. If we don't defeat them, then our party will suffer and we will suffer. Look, I'm tired of losing to Democrats, but I'm even more tired of watching Republicans act like Democrats.
Folks, his website is miltonwolfe.com, Milton, WOLF.com. You know, so your top three issues, if you had to classify them that way, number one, I guess, is Obamacare. What would the other two be?
Absolutely. And let me just say a little quickly on that. On Obamacare, if all you can do is complain about Obamacare, then you're not much more than a whiner. I've actually written a plan to replace Obamacare. And in fact, the Objective Standard called it by far the best alternative to Obamacare. It's patient-centered and market-driven. Look, I'm a doctor. I'm not a politician. We need people who actually have worked in the trenches that understand this stuff. And I urge people to get on my website, miltonwolfe.com, and look at it for yourself. It's called patient care. You know, the other is our IRS. We have a corrupt IRS that we need to dismantle brick by brick. You know, they fancy themselves to be the arbiter of free speech. They've even come after me. You know, I'll tell you, I'm one of the few people who's probably stood toe-to-toe with Barack Obama, and I've looked him in the eye, and I've told him that he's wrong. And I knew when I did that, I'd pay a price, and I have. They've harassed me. They've harassed my family. They sent the IRS after us to harass us. And when that finished, by the way, the IRS ended up paying us an interest penalty.
Good.
And then they sent the IRS after my business and audited us. And then the White House tried to get me fired. And all that served to do was fire me up, because a sovereign citizen should never be treated like that by a servant government. And so we have got to dismantle that IRS brick by brick. I'd like to repeal the 16th Amendment, and I'd like to institute the fair tax.
Mm-hmm. Let me just say this, because we have to wrap up. You are a terrific conservative, despite efforts to tear you down. As I say, I've read your stuff over the years. It's really good stuff. You're a practicing physician. You're not one of these inside the beltway guys. You're exactly the kind of candidate that our framers wanted. You know, Benjamin Rush was a doctor too, and he was a great founder. And we need men like you. We need women who are conservatives. We need to get you into the Senate. I would just ask our friends in Kansas, please, please consider what you're doing. We need Wolf in the Senate, so many of these conservatives, if we're going to reverse course. Dr. Wolf, God bless you, my friend, and good luck.
Thank you, Mark. I hope we're going to get you out here to Kansas, and hop on our website again, miltonwolf.com. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. That's Milton Wolf, Wolf spelled like it sounds, .com, folks, if you can lend him a hand. He's a good man. He really is a good man.